Dallas Races Net, first and third Sunday, 8 p.m., W5FC.
This is Inside BB. Testing and clear.
W5FC.
is N5BB. Does anybody need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet?
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Okay, this is N5BB. My name is Bill. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. First, a special news item here. The W5FC-R Echolink node is down due to some computer problems. So I've temporarily connected the Irving WA5CKF-R Echolink node to this W5FC repeater. So, if you normally get into Skynet via Echolink, tonight only, for Skynet and Afterglow, please go to the WA5CKF-R Echolink node, and you will find that it's connected to this repeater tonight. I hope that's clear. I'll repeat this message several times during the net. You can also still log into Facebook, Skynet, DARC Astronomy Net, or on YouTube, Live Skynet 9-4-21. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control N5BB. And stations are reminded to identify the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Tonight only, check-ins via Echolink are possible using the WA5CKF-R Echolink node. That's WA5CKF-R. The Irving Echolink node is connected to this repeater tonight only. I will listen for Echolink check-ins later. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and structured in several parts. General announcements. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, National Space Society events, the discussion topic of the evening by your net control station was a Chaz, space exploration and space history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. And if we have any time, astronomical questions and answers, followed by the 73 round. All All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequencies are invited to check in here or on the WA5CKF-R Echolink node tonight only. So let's start for RF check-ins. Let's start for low power or short time check-ins. Do we have any short time RF check-ins? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. This is N5BB Skynet.
Kilo 5, Joliet, Alpha Lima, short time, Jeffrey, Dallas.
Okay, I recognize K5JAL, Jeffrey. Good evening, Jeffrey. Do we have any other short-time check-ins? If so, please come now, short-time check-ins. This is N5BB Skynet. Nothing heard. Jeffrey, do you have anything you want to give to the net before you leave?
No, sir. Everything's going good. I'm just here listening shortly while I'm on my way to the airport. And other than that, that's it. K5JAL.
Well, very good, Jeffrey. I hope it's a good personal Labor Day trip. Have fun. In any case. Okay, now let's look for general RF check-ins. General RF check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, and your location. This is N5BB Skynet, over.
November 5, Oscar X-Ray Yankee. This is Timothy in Bedford.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Bravo Juliet. This is Dennis in Arlington.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Tango Zulu, Philip, White Rock Creek.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly and Quillen.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite.
Kilo Bravo 5, Delta Mike Charlie, Brian in Roanoke.
Okay, let's pause there. Recognize N5OXY. Hello, Timothy. Hearing you on all the time now. Very good new call. KI5KBG. Dennis. Dennis, did I get your call right? Kilo India 5, Kilo Bravo Juliet. Is that right, Dennis?
Roger, net control.
Very good. Dennis is in Arlington. Next, I'd like to recognize Brenda, WB50ZL, Philip, KI5KTZ, Tom, KE5ICX, Kelly, K5KTX, Chaz, KF5JHA, and Brian, KB5DMC, out in Roanoke. Do we have any other RF check-ins for Skynet? This is N5BB, net control.
Alpha India 5, Delta Yankee, AI 5, DY, Bill, Garland.
And I recognize AI5DY, Bill in Garland. Hello, Bill. Okay, one more try. Do we have any other RF check-ins for Skynet? This is in 5BB.
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor and Lima, James and Carolyn.
And I recognize James, KG5WVL. Do we have any other RF check-ins? If so, please come now. This is in 5BB, Skynet. Now let's go over to Echolink. As I said earlier, the W5FC Echolink node is down for the count tonight, but we reconfigured WA5CKF-R. I see several stations over there. So let me just ask, is there anybody on Echolink that would like to come in on voice? Let me start calling some people. Let's see. JJ, do you want to come in on voice, or do you want to be silent? JJ is silent now. Kevin, N5KRG. Do you want to come in on voice, Kevin? I don't think Kevin's listening. He was checked in much earlier. Jay, KG5BZW. Do you want to check in?
This is Kilo Golf 5. Bravo Zulu Whiskey. Okay, just be advised that if somebody can only listen to Echolink, they aren't going to hear you, Bill. KG5BDW.
You're coming through fine, Jay, with full echo chamber quality. And the IDer on the Echolink node unfortunately kind of killed the first part of your transmission. Sorry about that. It's pretty loud. Okay, we got you, Jay. Next, let's see. Chaz has already checked in. John, K5JDW, up in Norman. John, do you want to come in on voice? This is N5BB, Skynet. No, K5JDW is there because he's been typing on text. But I guess he's in listen-only mode right now. Next. KG5ZMG. Hello, Joe. Do you want to check in on voice? Well, oh, there we go. Joe says check him in. N5KRG. Kevin, are you back yet? I'm going to assume that Kevin will eventually be in there, so I'll check him in. Okay, do we have anyone else that'd like to check in via any mode to Skynet? This is N5BB Net Control. Please come with your call sign, name, and location.
November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Claire Mesquite.
I recognize N5OF. Hello, Clay. Any other check-ins for Skynet? John said he was thinking. Maybe he's not listening. Maybe he's just only watching the text right now. Anyway, let's see. What else do we have? One more try. Any more check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB, Net Control. Nothing heard. Now let's try general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or anything of general interest to licensed hams. If so, please come now with your call sign only. This is N5BB, Skynet. Oh, I thought Tony at least would have something. I guess I'll put a few items in. The sunspot number has been creeping up higher. There were some coronal mass ejections and other things going on the sun, but we didn't get completely blasted out too badly. And the sunspot number's been creeping up. So that means that HF propagation should be getting better. And I think in general it is, from listening to 20 meters. We all know about the effect of Hurricane Ida on Louisiana and going on up through the New York, New Jersey area. I have a ham friend up in New Jersey. His house was okay, although he had some water in the basement he had to suck up. But 2 blocks from his house, there's a stream that's completely, the road's impassable because of high water. And, of course, a number of people have died in their vehicles up there. And amateur radio has been useful in some of those areas in communication. But fortunately, it hasn't affected our area. Let's see, I can't think of any other local ham radio news, except that we do have the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting, which will be virtual this coming Tuesday, September the 7th. At 6 p.m. will be the board meeting, and the general meeting will be at 7. And I cannot remember what the meeting topic is, even though I've heard it. Tony, can you tell us what the meeting topic is? This is N5BB. NT5TM, are you still there, Tony? I think he's away. Tom, do you remember what the meeting topic is for Tuesday?
Yeah, Bill, it will be John Stratton, who is the Gulf manager of the ARRL for our area. He'll be on discussing all things having to do with the ARRL. come on by. And of course, it's open to anybody who'd like to join both the board meeting and then the general meeting. So you're welcome to attend both. Those are two different links, so you'll have to go to the event calendar, the w5fc.org website, look for DARC activities, home DARC activities, and then event calendar, and then click on this coming Tuesday. You'll find the information for the meeting at 7, which is the I'm sorry, the 6 o'clock is the board meeting, and then 7 o'clock is the general meeting. You'll find it there. Back to you, Bill, KE5ICX.
Thanks, Tom. The moment you started, I immediately remembered the topic. And yes, John Stratton, who's from the Austin area, is N5AUS. He is the West Coast Division Director of the ARRL. Been involved for a number of years at ARRL, and he's a rather engaging speaker, and I'm sure he'll have a lot to tell us about a lot of interesting things, since there's a lot of interesting things to radio these days. Okay, so that's what's going on locally. As far as some other general news, the Mars rover Perseverance drilled a core, and it appeared to have a good sample in it, but they're not positive, and they were going to take some more pictures and send them back today. But the last I looked, I have not seen whether those latest pictures still showed a good core. The problem with the earlier pictures is they had a picture with the sun at a weird angle, and they hoped that the core sample just fell back into the tube. Anyway, they're crossing their fingers and think they have a good core sample finally, because the attempt they made earlier at another previous date was not good. The rock was too hard or whatever. So, good things on Mars. Of course, the Firefly rocket launch attempt a couple days ago from Vandenberg Air Force Base unfortunately failed. Firefly Aerospace is a company in a suburb of Austin, Texas, and they were launching from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The rocket got off the launch pad. It got up to reasonable altitude. It was going supersonic speeds. When, after a little over 2 minutes, they had an anomaly, and it blew up in a big fireball. So they got a lot of good telemetry, though, and it was the first time they tried shooting that rocket up for an orbital launch. So they consider they're making good progress. You will notice with all these companies launching that new rockets, that rocket science is a lot of planning, a lot of testing, and a lot of failures before you get it right. That's just the way it is. It's been like that since the 1940s and 50s, and it continues to be that way in the 2021s. Okay, this is N5BB and Skynet. I'll ask if there's any other late check-ins before we move ahead with the net. This is N5BB.
5OSY recheck.
I'm sorry I missed the call sign, but go ahead with your recheck. Give me your call sign again.
Sure. Call sign is N5OXY. Two other things, kind of similar to the Firefly thing. Astra, which I think was last Sunday, also had a failed launch attempt, which was a pretty spectacular sort of power slide off the launch pad. And then secondly, and I don't know too much about it, but I've heard something about Virgin is having some issues with the FAA. Is that correct? N5OXY.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima checking in.
Very good. I recognize KF5ZBL. Hello, Bill. And we are up on W5FC-R, by the way. Excuse me, WA5CKF-R. So we are getting through this Echolink problem. with an alternative resource. Yeah, and I'm not going to get into the details, but Virgin Galactic did have some problems. They had a red warning light, and evidently they ignored it, or that's what's being alleged. So the FAA has announced that they're investigating whether they properly looked at their safety protocols and executed them properly on that launch. Okay, let's move ahead. Is there any other news items or late check-ins? This is N5BB, Skynet.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Shauna Fort Worth. Just checking in.
Okay, Sean, I forgot the second letter of your call.
KB9, SOK.
Okay, Kilo Bravo 9, SOK. We got you, Sean. Okay, now let's move ahead with the next part of the net. There are AMSAT, Radio Amateur Satellite Corporation, related nets available here locally on Tuesdays at 8 p.m., except when we have DARC meetings like this coming Tuesday. But on all other Tuesdays, you can listen at 8 p.m. Central Time on this repeater, 146.88. And let me see, just a moment. This is confusing. I don't like the way it's written up. Yes, it's at 8 p.m. on the 146.88 repeater. So you will hear that net. And then on Wednesday nights, the same net is at 9 p.m. on the 147.14 megahertz Arlington repeater. So we have two local nets here on local repeaters about AMSAT. Next item. We have various nets on the Mondays on this repeater. The first week of the month, ham fixin' nets. The second week, HamCom 101, emergency communications. The third week, ham fixings net. The fourth week, geek net. If there is a fifth week, surprise net. It'd be a surprise. We can't tell you about it. And then Friday, we have the CERT City Simulation Net, 8 p.m. on this repeater on Fridays. And then on Saturdays, we have TICnet from 7 to 8 p.m., Skynet from 9 to 10:30. And after this net, we will have Afterglows from 10:30 till about midnight, talking about a movie. And by the way, tonight, the movie will be the reconstruction of William Zero. Tom, do you have a short synopsis? This is N5BB, Skynet.
Why, thank you, Bill. And yes, I do have a movie synopsis. Here it goes. And these are all technically accurate. William wondered where he'd put the remote control. It was probably under the sofa, or somehow stuffed inside the heavily fortified pillows. He continued to look, and then decided he would just order another one from Amazon. Siri, he barked into the mysterious microphone, order me another remote control for my TV. Siri, of course, followed up with an equally mysterious request. People who repeatedly buy new remote controls they lose also order clones of themselves, so it's easier to find the remote control if it's in the hands of one of your clones. William looked curiously at the ordering assistant device and responded, order 2 clones of me, which she did. Ordering things online were so easy, maybe too easy, and dangerous when it came to your own possible doppelganger replacement. Join us for the reconstruction of William Zero tonight at 10:30 p.m. Back to you, Bill.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. Other nets and activities on this repeater. On the first and third Sundays of every month, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air is at 7 p.m. And at 8 p.m., we have the Races training net only for RACES members, but anybody can listen. And then every evening on this repeater, we have the National Traffic System training net at 6:30 p.m. every night, except for the first Tuesday when it's on the Irving 146.72 repeater. And that same National Traffic Net 10:30 night, 10:30 in the evening nets are on the Irving 146.72 repeater also. Anybody is welcome to any of these nets except for the RACES net, which you can still listen to. Okay, before we get to Chaz, do we have any additional check-ins for Skynet? This is N5BB net control. Nothing heard. Now let's go to the infamous Chaz. KF5JHA. Chaz, what's going on with the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas? This is N5BB.
I'm just wondering how I'm infamous, but okay. Yeah, I'm transmitting on 5 watts, but it sounds like it's coming through fine over the Echo link, so it should be good. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, September the 24th at 7:30 p.m. The meeting was scheduled to be the first in-person meeting in a year and a half, but due to the rise of COVID cases, it's been switched to a Zoom meeting. The scheduled speaker will not be able to attend the meeting, so right now the only thing scheduled for the meeting is the annual elections. The Task Club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting in advance of that meeting. And Saturday night public observing sessions have once again been placed on hold because of COVID. Now, one of the reasons why Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights was so that there was an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions, which are also held on Saturday nights. Check the TASS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about the meetings and public observing sessions, which I hope will sometime in the future become face-to-face again. This is KF5JJ, back to N5BB.
Thank you, Chaz. Yeah, this stupid pandemic shortens all of these public meeting things and in-person activities. Okay, next. Do we have any other check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB, net control.
Kilo 0 Foxtrot Echo Romeo checking in.
Key 0 FER, I recognize you, but I forgot your name and location.
Chris in Southeast Dallas. K0 FER.
Thank you, Chris. K0 FER, I show you checked in. Do we have any other check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB, net control. Nothing heard. Now, unfortunately, you're going to have to listen to me for a while. I'm going to give information about the National Space Society. The National Space, I happen to be the membership director of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. If you have any reason to ask questions about the National Space Society, or you would like to join the National Space Society or a local chapter, please send me an email at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE@BYROM.net, or N5BB@ARRL.net. You can find our website at NSSOFNT.org. That's abbreviated National Space Society of North Texas.org. URL will stay the same, but the content will change dramatically here momentarily. I thought it already occurred, but when I checked earlier today, it was still on the old site, which is rather old. We've been rather remiss at updating things. Sorry about that. The next meeting of the National Space Society North Texas chapter will be on Sunday afternoon, September the 12th, a week from tomorrow, at 3:30 p.m. The meeting will be virtual. If you want a link to the live WebEx meeting, send me an email at the email address I gave earlier for N5BB. I've already mentioned that Firefly Aerospace had a problem with their first launch, although they got it up in the air and they got a lot of good telemetry. The National Space Society of North Texas has an active Facebook page. Just enter National Space Society of North Texas in the Facebook search and you'll find us. We're not doing any in-person things right now because of the uptick in COVID things. We did participate in Moon Day, but after Moon Day, COVID ticked up and we went back into slow mode. Okay, any questions or late check-ins? This is N5BB, Skynet. Okay, next is our discussion topic of the evening, and since I'm net control, I get to do it. Sorry you have to listen to me further. The topic is deflecting an asteroid before it hits Earth may take multiple bumps. Deflecting an asteroid before it hits Earth may take multiple bumps. This is from the New York Times. After years of shooting meteorites with a special gun owned by NASA, researchers highlighted challenges for a preferred method of planetary defense. There's probably a large space rock out there somewhere that has Earth in its crosshairs. Scientists have in fact spotted one candidate, Bennu, which has a small chance of banging into our planet in the year 2182. And by the way, we've already sent a spacecraft to Bennu to check it out and make some measurements and send it back to Earth. So we do care about that. But whether it's Bennu or another asteroid, the question will be how to avoid a very unwelcome cosmic rendezvous. For almost 20 years, a team of researchers has been preparing for such a scenario. Using a specially designed gun, they've repeatedly fired projectiles at meteorites and measured how the space rocks recoiled and in some cases shattered. These observations shed light on how an asteroid might respond to a high-velocity impact intended to deflect it away from Earth. At the 84th annual meeting of the Meteorological Society. I keep wanting to say meteorological, but it's not. It's Meteoritical Society. Held in Chicago in August, researchers presented findings from all that high-speed marksmanship. Their results suggest that whether we're able to knock an asteroid away from our planet could depend on what kind of space rock we're faced with and how many times we hit it. In the 1960s, scientists began seriously considering what to do with an asteroid on a collision course with our planet. The leading idea back then was to launch a projectile that would shatter the space rock into pieces small enough to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere, said George Flynn, a physicist at State University of New York, Plattsburgh. but scientists have since come to realize that achieving such a direct, catastrophic hit is a serious challenge. It turns out that's very hard, Dr. Flynn said. The thinking is different today. And it's not Hollywood diversion with a nuclear bomb either. By the way, I hope the Echolink audio is still working. I can't tell over here on my end. It looks like it may have stopped, but I can't troubleshoot it because I'm running the net. Somebody might tell me on Echolink text where the audio is still coming through. The thinking is different today. The current leading idea is nudging an incoming asteroid aside. The way to do that, they generally agree, is deliberately setting up a collision between an asteroid and a much smaller, less massive object. Known as kinetic impact deflection, such a collision alters the trajectory of the asteroid ever so slightly, with the intent that its orbit changes enough to pass harmlessly by Earth. Hang on, I'll be right back. This is N5BB, Skynet. I'm thinking that the transmitter may have overheated. I put it in high power mode, so I switched to medium, and maybe it'll come back on. So you may barely miss the Earth, but barely missing is enough. Kinetic impact deflection is a promising and currently feasible technique, said Dan Durda, a planetary scientist at the Southwest Research Institute in Boulder, Colorado. It doesn't require science fiction kinds of technologies. In 2003, Dr. Flynn, Dr. Durda, and colleagues began firing projectiles at meteorites to test the limits of kinetic impact deflection. The goal was to figure out how much momentum could be transferred to a meteorite without shattering it into shrapnel that could continue on a similar orbital path through the solar system. If you break it into pieces, some of those pieces may still be on a collision course with the Earth, Dr. Flynn said. Similar laboratory studies in the past have mostly shot projectiles at terrestrial rocks. But meteorites are a much better sample, he said, because they're fragments of asteroids. The hitch is getting access to them. It's hard to talk museum curators into giving you a big piece of a meteorite so you can turn it into dust. Over the course of many years, the researchers amassed 32 meteorites, most purchased from private dealers. The largest, roughly the size of a fist, weighing 1 pound, cost about $900. Roughly half the meteorites belong to a type known as carbonaceous chondrites, which tend to be relatively rich in carbon and water. The remainder were ordinary chondrites, which typically contain less carbon. Both types are representative of the near-Earth asteroids that pose the largest risk to our planet. Bennu is a carbonaceous chondrite. The team turned to an Apollo era facility to test how the meteorites responded to high-speed impacts. NASA Ames vertical gun range in California was built in the 60s. to help scientists better understand how moon craters form. It's capable of launching projectiles at over 4 miles per second, far faster than a rifle. It's one of the few guns on the planet that can shoot things at the speeds characteristic of impacts. Working within the facility's firing chamber, roughly the size of a walk-in closet, the researchers suspended each space rock from a piece of nylon string. They then pumped the chamber to a vacuum and fired tiny aluminum spheres at the meteorites. They launched spheres ranging in diameter from 1/16th to 1/4 of an inch at different velocities. They have various sensors, including cameras that recorded up to 71,000 frames per second, documenting the impacts. The goal was to determine the point at which the meteorite stops being simply nudged by an impact and instead starts to fragment. The researchers found a significant difference in the strength of the two types of meteorites they tested. The carbonaceous chondrites tended to fragment much more readily. They could withstand receiving only about 1/6 of the momentum than the ordinary chondrites could before shattering. The results have implications for deflecting a real asteroid, the team suggests. If an asteroid richer in carbon was headed our way, it might be necessary to give it a series of gentler nudges to prevent it from breaking up. You might have to use multiple impacts, Dr. Flynn said. Next year, researchers will test kinetic impact deflection on a real asteroid in the solar system for the first time with NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test, that's DART, mission. The spacecraft's target asteroid, a roughly 525-foot piece of rock known as Dimorphos, is in no danger of hitting Earth, however. The mission is expected to launch in November. Getting near the end here. Laboratory investigations of kinetic impact deflection shed light on how an asteroid will respond to being impacted, said Nancy Chabot, who is the DART mission's coordination lead and was not involved in the experimental work. It's definitely important to be doing these experiments, said Dr. Chabot, who is also a planetary scientist at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory. The DART mission is about being prepared for what's most likely a cosmic inevitability. It's one of those things we hope we never actually need to do, Dr. Chabot said. But the Earth has been hit by objects for its entire history, and it will continue to get hit by objects in the future. So, again, if you hit the asteroid with too big an impact, it may shatter, and those shattered pieces may cause a lot of damage on the Earth. But if you can gently nudge it with small, multiple nudges, you may be able to change its trajectory, and it would miss the Earth. That's all I've got. Sorry that was so long. Do we have any more check-ins? I am going to go over and try to see what's wrong with Echolink. Sorry about that. Do we have any other check-ins? This is N5BB, Skynet.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India WB4 MFI, Ted Dallas Low Power.
WB4 MFI. Thank you very much, Ted. We recognize you. Do we have any other check-ins to Skynet?
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas.
NT5TM. Oh, I thought I checked you in earlier, Tony, but I did not. Very good, Tony. Do you have any comments or news items?
I do not. I've been outside in the dark experimenting with end-fed half-waves, and then I realized it was really late and I should come in and be social with my friends. NT5TF.
Very good, Tony. Do we have any other check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB.
November 5, Juliet, Charlie, Mark out in Wiley.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick, Dallas.
Kilo India 5, Papa Golf Mike, Travis in Garland.
And I recognize KI5 PGM, Travis. Do we have any, good evening. Do we have any other check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB, net control. Okay, I'm going to go over and try to figure out why the WA5CKF Skynet node suddenly decided to stop transmitting audio. And I'm going to turn it over to Chaz for What's Up. Take it away, Chaz. This is Inside BB.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I'm in charge of the astrophysics lab at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up. Slide Master. I'm sorry, I should have brought up my video version of this on YouTube. Slide Master, slide number 2, please. On August 30th, the moon was at its third quarter phase. So the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. So if you get up really early, you might see a crescent moon in tomorrow morning's sky. On September the 6th, the moon will be new. On September the 11th, the moon will be at perigee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth. On September the 13th, the moon will be at its first quarter phase, and on September 20th, the moon will be full. Slide number 3, please. On September 7th, there is a conjunction of the moon and Mars in the western evening sky. This is going to happen in strong twilight. You'll probably need a pair of binoculars to be able to see them. Slide number 4, please. Just the very next night, on September the 8th, there will be a conjunction of the moon and Mercury in the western evening sky. And again, this will happen in strong twilight. I recommend a very clear western horizon and a pair of binoculars. Slide number 5, please. On the night of September 8th and 9th, the September Epsilon Perseid meteor shower will be at its maximum. Oops, I skipped one. No, I didn't. I'm sorry. The Perseid meteor shower will be at its maximum. You could see about half a dozen meteors in an hour watching the sky. The best time to watch meteors is between midnight and dawn, because this is the side of the Earth that's running into the meteoroids. I've got to stop watching football at the same time as trying to do Skynet. That's why I'm getting distracted. Yeah. Slide number 6, please. On September the 9th, there will be a conjunction of the moon and Venus in the western evening sky. Spica, the brightest star in Virgo, will be just underneath the moon and Venus in the evening sky. Slide number 7, please. On September 16th, in the southeastern evening sky, you can find the moon close to the planet Saturn. This conjunction is less than 5 degrees apart. Slide number 8. The very next night, on September 17th, the moon is next to the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is much brighter than Saturn, so this might make a more dramatic view. Slide number 9, please. And September the 22nd is the autumnal equinox. The autumnal equinox occurs at 8:30 a.m. Central Daylight Time on September the 22nd. The sun will shine directly overhead on the equator, and there'll be nearly equal amounts of day and night throughout the entire world on that day. This is also the first day of fall, or autumn, autumnal equinox, in the northern hemisphere, and the first day of spring, the vernal equinox, for the southern hemisphere. And on this day, the sun rises directly east and sets directly west, pretty much everywhere on the Earth. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 10, please. Once again, the Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting, the next one will be held on September the 24th. It's a virtual one. It'll be Zoom, and members will receive an email about the link to Zoom about a week or so ahead of time. The observing stations, I'm sort of paraphrasing at this point, the observing stations have been put on pause once again because of the increase in COVID. To get more information about Texas Astronomical Society, go to texasastro.org. Now, slide number 11, please. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need to fill on any information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. So come now with your call sign if you have a question. Okay, slide number 12, please. So as the moon wanes at the beginning of September, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world, because it's the only one where humans live. And until next week, actually I'll be doing another Skynet segment in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz, KF5, JHA. Back to our net control. Thank you, Bill. It's working over Echolink again.
Yes. This is Baby. And I'm checking the Echolink transmitter, and it's working too.
So I have no idea why the thing failed and started working. Oh, now I see. Seems to be related to me transmitting. You know, I'm desensing the receiver. That's what it is. Yeah, and unfortunately, if I lower my power, you're not going to be able to hear me on an RF. So unfortunately, maybe it's fortunately, you won't get to hear me make my comments, but you'll hear everybody else, unless I go to Echolink. Move now to space exploration and space history. It's either Brenda or Kelly. Nobody tells me which one. Whose turn is it? Go ahead, Brenda or Kelly. This is N5BB, Skynet.
This is WB50ZL. It's my turn this week. So, we have news, space news. NASA's big rocket misses another deadline. Now won't fly until 2022. Publicly, NASA is still holding on to the possibility of a 2021 launch date for the debut flight of its Space Launch System rocket. This week, an agency spokesperson told ARS that NASA is working toward a launch for the Artemis 1 mission by the end of this year. However, a source said that the best-case scenario for launching the Artemis 1 mission is spring of next year, with summer being the more realistic target for a test flight of the heavy-lift rocket and Orion spacecraft. The space agency is already running about 2 months behind internal targets for testing and integrating the rocket at Kennedy Space Center, and the critical pre-flight tests remain ahead. Earlier this summer, technicians and engineers in Florida completed stacking the SLS rocket, along with its side boosters. A mass simulator for Orion was in place to top the rocket. At present, NASA and its contractors are working on vibration tests of the assembled rocket with the goal of better understanding the difference between the natural vibrations of the full stack versus those caused by external forces. This information will be fed into flight software. NASA originally hoped to complete this work in July, but Hambleton confirmed to ours that this vibration or modal testing is ongoing in the vehicle assembly building at Kennedy Space Center. Following this testing, the mass simulator will be removed and the Orion spacecraft with its launch abort system will be stacked carefully on top of the rocket. This process may take a few weeks. Following this assembly and further tests, the SLS stack will be rolled to Launch Pad 39B for a wet dress rehearsal, during which the vehicle will be fueled and much of an actual countdown will be simulated. However, the vehicle's engines will not be fired. A source said this wet dress test would likely take place in November or December. Stand by. I'm sorry, I was looking for a cough drop. I have a whole bag in the other room and not one in here. Next up, International Space Station facing irreparable failures, Russia warns. The ISS could suffer irreparable failures due to outdated equipment and hardware, Russian official has warned. At least 80% of in-flight systems of the Russian segment of the ISS had passed their expiry date, Vladimir Solov told state media. He also says small cracks have been discovered that could worsen over time. Russia has often raised concerns over hardware and suggested it could leave the ISS after 2025. The station was built in 1998 as part of a joint project between Russia, America, Canada, Japan, and several European countries and was originally designed for a 15-year lifespan. Next, I think Bill covered this some earlier. Mars Perseverance rover gathers a rock sample. I think he covered that. We'll probably skip over this. But that's exciting. It picked up a rock. That doesn't sound exciting, except it is. History. On August 31st, 1979, Pioneer 11 found evidence of Saturn's bow shock, or the spot where Saturn's magnetic field shielded the planet from the effects of the sun. This is the first evidence NASA had about Saturn's magnetic field. The next day, spacecraft flew past Saturn at just 13,000 miles from the planet's cloud tops, a distance of only twice Earth's diameter away. Sensors on board estimated Saturn's temperature at minus 292 degrees Fahrenheit, it's minus 180 centigrade, and discovered that the planet was mostly made of liquid hydrogen. Pioneer 11's major discoveries at Saturn were finding a new ring, dubbed the F ring, as well as two small moons. Its initial temperature measurements of Titan, Saturn's largest moon, found the moon was very cold. "40 years ago, Voyager 2 explored Saturn. 40 years ago, the Voyager 2 spacecraft made its closest approach to Saturn. Managed by NASA's JPL in Pasadena, the Voyagers are a pair of spacecraft launched in 1977 to explore the outer planets. Initially targeted only to visit Jupiter and Saturn, Voyager 2 went on to investigate Uranus and Neptune as well, taking advantage of a rare planetary alignment that occurs once every 175 years to use the gravity of one planet to redirect it to the next. Although not the first to explore the ringed planet, Pioneer 11 completed the first flyby in 1979. The Voyagers carried more sophisticated instruments to conduct in-depth investigations. Voyager 2's twin, Voyager 1, made its closest approach to Saturn in November 1980. 44 years after the departure from Earth, both spacecraft continue to operate and report on the conditions of interstellar space. Then we have birthdays. Krista McAuliffe, September 2nd, 1948. Her only flight was STS-51L, which of course was a Challenger explosion, and she died with all of her crewmates. Jack Swigert, August 30th, 1931. He flew on Apollo 13. Christopher Ferguson, September 1st, 1961. He flew 3 shuttle missions, STS-115, 126, and 135. Megan MacArthur, August 30th, 1971, STS-125, SpaceX Crew 2, that's Expedition 6566. She's up there right now. Thomas Marshburn, August 29th, that might be Mashburn, that might be a typo. August 29th, 1960, STS-127, Soyuz TMA-07M, which was Expedition 3435. Charles D. Walker, August 29th, 1948. 3 shuttles, STS-41D, 51D, and 61B. And Sherwood C. Spring, September 3rd, 1944, STS-61B. All right, that's it. Back to net. This is WB50ZL.
Okay, Brenda. WB50ZL, this is N5BB. And again, my signal is overloading the Echolink receiver, a situation Tom knows all about, but I didn't think about it tonight. Too bad I'm net control. Anyway, thank you very much there. And do we have any late check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB.
Kilo India 5, Papa Romeo.
This is Alpha Golf 9, Sierra Golf.
I heard 2 stations, neither of which I really got. KI5PPR, what was your name and location, please?
The name is Jeffrey, and the location is Melissa.
Thank you much, Jeffrey. The next station had a 9. Please say slowly your call sign phonetically, followed by your name and location.
This is Alpha Golf 9, Sierra Golf. Antonio here in Dallas.
Very good, Antonio. Got you that time. AG9SG. Do we have any other Skynet check-ins? Please come now. This is N5BB, Net Control. Station apparently trying to check in is way too weak. We'll ask for check-ins later and you can try again. Okay, Chaz, it's your turn for Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Take it away, KF5JHA. This is N5BB, Skynet Net Control. Go ahead, Chaz.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, this is KF5JHA Chaz. Slide number 13, please. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. And in her honor, we have continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Aquila the Eagle. The constellation names means eagle in Latin. The constellation represents an eagle of the Roman god Jupiter in mythology. The constellation was first cataloged by the Greek astronomer Ptolemy in the 2nd century. In Greek mythology, Aquila is identified as an eagle that carried Zeus's thunderbolts and was once dispatched by the god to carry Ganymede, the young Trojan boy Zeus desired to Olympus to be the cupbearer of the gods. Ganymede is represented by the neighboring constellation of Aquarius, and you also know it as one of the moons of Jupiter. At least Ganymede is, I should say. Slide Master, slide number 14. Now, this is the part where everyone's waiting. You've been waiting for the last week to hear this. These are the jokes of the week, and they're always related. Well, I try to make them related to the constellation of the week. So here we go. What bird does not need a comb? The bald eagle. You know, that was my... Oh, there you go. Thank you, John. He answered that in the Echo Link. Yeah, my Native American name when we were doing Indian Princesses and Indian Guides in the YMCA with my kids was Bald Eagle. Yeah, that's pretty funny. What does the eagle say to his friends before they go hunting for food? Let us pray. Okay, I thought that was funny. How does an eagle greet its prey? Pleased to eat you. So what is an eagle's favorite game? Beak-a-boo. Get it? They have a beak. Okay, all right. What do you call a sick eagle? An illegal. There you go. Thank you, JJ. You got that in Echo Link. Why? And this is the last one. I know you're going to applaud, for that. Maybe boo or hiss, because you want more. This is the last one in this part, anyway. Why is the eagle considered the most skillful bird? Because it is the most talented. Slide Master, slide number 15, please. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for cheering me on, Bill. I appreciate it. If you're not on Echo Link, you've got to get on Echo Link. It's a lot of fun. So, slide 15. Altair, Alpha Aquilae, is the brightest star in Aquila. It's the 12th brightest star in the sky. Altair is one of the 3 bright stars that make up the summer triangle, and it's the 2nd brightest star of the 3. The name Altair is derived from the Arabic words for a flying eagle. This is interesting. Altair is a A-type white star located only 17 light years from the Earth, so it's pretty close to us. Altair is one of the few stars that has been directly imaged. A copy of the image can be found on page 7 of Volume 2 of the Annals of Deep Sky by Jeff Knipe and Dennis Webb. It may also be found in Wikipedia entry for Altair. Altair is noted for its extreme fast rotation in about 6.5 hours, which translates to a rotational speed of about 160 miles per second at the equator. The rapid rotation rate makes the star oblique or an oblate spheroid. This equatorial diameter is about 4 solar radii, which is 22% greater than its polar diameter, which is 3.3 solar radii. Big difference. Terazad is a second brightest star in Aquila. Its name is derived from the Persian, which means the beam of the scale. It's a spectral class K32, bright giant with an apparent magnitude of 2.72, and approximately 461 light years in distance. Terazad is about 3,000 times more luminous than the Sun and has a radius of 110 solar radii, taking up about half an astronomical unit. So it's as big as the distance between the Sun and the Earth, which is about, well, an AU, half of that, I should say. It is known as an X-ray source. It's only about 100 million years old, and yet it's already burning helium into carbon at its core. And that's an interesting stage in a star's development. We've talked about stellar development in the past. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 16, please, Slide Master. NGC 6760 is a globular cluster. Dave Hutchinson notes that this globular is pretty easy to locate and observe, and he found numerous reports of people locating this cluster using just binoculars. Using a 13-inch Newtonian, he describes NGC 6760 as a very nice cluster that is very symmetrical and a pretty dense core. He adds that he didn't think that he resolved it completely. Slide number 17, please. NGC 6781 is a planetary nebula known as the Snow Globe Nebula. Dave Hutchinson describes NGC 6781 as a sort of a cross between M57, the Ring Nebula, and M97, the Owl Nebula. Like the Ring Nebula, this object is a well-defined ring, but unlike the Ring and more like the Owl Nebula, this object's interior is well illuminated. He mentions that it's a nice object for an 8-inch scope or larger, and challenges those with very large telescopes to try to observe the nebula's central star, which shines at magnitude 16. I'm going to have to try that next time I have my 16-inch stop out. Slide number 18, please. NGC 6751 is a planetary nebula known as the Dandelion Puffball, or the Glowing Eye Nebula. Dave Hutchinson notes that NGC 6751 was difficult to see in his 13-inch telescope because it's very faint and small, and it's almost lost in the crowded Milky Way star field. Slide number 19, please. NGC 6778 is a planetary nebula also, and it's sometimes known as the son of M76. You'll have to look up what M76 is. Dave Hutchinson writes that NGC 6778 is even more difficult to find than the last planetary nebula I mentioned, NGC 6751, in his 13-inch telescope. He suggests using medium power to find it, where you will notice it is an easy, irregular, yet round fuzzball star. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 20, please. There are more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Aquila the Eagle. I've just given you a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 70, in fact I believe it's 73, different observing programs, which most have about 100 objects. So if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year. Slide number 21, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Aquila the Eagle. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal every Saturday night. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Next time, I'll take a look at two constellations, the Pecula, the little fox, and Sagitta or Sagitta, the arrow. And this is KF5, JHA, sending it back to our net control N5BB. Yes, Bill, I do need a rim shot after my jokes.
Okay, Jeff, this is N5BB. I'm afraid it's running over echoing now, so everybody can hopefully hear me. Thank you very much. I think it's now time for Tom, K5ICX, with the astronomical launches of the week. And hold on here. I feel like we're missing something. Anyway, go ahead, Tom. K5ICX and 5BD.
All right, thank you, Bill. Actually, I talked to Brenda. She lost her internet this evening, and she had the article that she had hot linked to, but did not have an original copy of it, or a local copy of it. So I'm going to read a little bit of both. So I'm going to do the next two segments, but I'll do them fairly quickly. Space launches for the week. We've got Electron Black Sky launched from Launch Complex 1A in Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand. A Rocket Lab Electron rocket will launch two small satellites of Black Sky's commercial fleet of Earth observation spacecraft. Rocket Lab has nicknamed this project, this mission, Love at First Insight. How cute. Next we have launch time is to be determined in September from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. SpaceX Falcon 9 will launch the first dedicated mission with Starlink Link Internet satellites in the Vandenberg Space Force Base. Then on September 14th, we have the Soyuz launch from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The Soyuz rocket will launch 34 satellites into orbit for OneWeb, which is developing a constellation of several hundred satellites for low Earth orbit, low latency broadband communications. On September 15th, we have a Falcon 9 launch time to be determined. This is from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. A Falcon 9 rocket will launch a Crew Dragon spacecraft on its first all-private, all-civilian orbital mission known as Inspiration 4. The mission is organized to raise money for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. The mission is commanded by billionaire Jared Isaacman and will be joined by scientist and educator Sion Proctor, medical officer Haley Arkano, and mission specialist Christopher Sembrovsky. So there you have it. Let's see. To be determined, there's a launch from the Mahia Peninsula, Complex 1A. Electron launch will launch two second-generation satellites for Black Sky's commercial fleet. September 23rd, Atlas V Landsat 9 launch from SLC-3E at Vandenberg Space Force Base. The Atlas V rocket will launch Landsat 9 Earth observation satellite for NASA and the U.S. Geological Survey. It's built by Northrop Grumman. Landsat 9 will continue a series of Landsat images of Earth dating back to nearly 50 years. The rocket will fly the 401 vehicle configuration with 4-meter fairing, no solid rocket boosters, and a single-engine Centaur upper stage. There's only, forgot to push to talk. Can't chew my gum and push to talk at the same time. Recent astronomical discoveries. Cold planets exist throughout our galaxy, even the galactic bulge. And this is what it says. Although thousands of planets have been discovered in the Milky Way, more reside less than a few thousand light years from Earth. Yet our galaxy is more than 100,000 light years across, making it difficult to investigate the galactic distribution of planets. But now a research team has found a way to overcome the hurdle. In a study published in the Astrogeophysical journal Letters, researchers led by Osaka University and NASA have a combination of observations and modeling to determine how the planet hosting probability varies with the distance from the galactic center. Observations were based on phenomena called gravitational microlensing, whereby objects such as planets as lenses bending and magnifying the light from distant stars. This effect can be used to detect cold planets similar to Jupiter and Neptune throughout the Milky Way, with the galactic disk to the galactic bulge, the central region of our galaxy. Gravitational microlensing currently provides the only way to investigate the distribution of planets in the Milky Way. But until now, little is known, mainly because of the difficulty of measuring the distance to planets that are more than 10,000 light years from the Sun. To solve the problem, researchers instead considered the distribution of quantity quantify that describes the relative motion of the lenses in distant light sources in planetary microlensing. By comparing the distribution observed in microlensing events with that predicted by the galactic model, the research team can infer the galactic distribution of planets. The results show that a planetary distribution is not strongly dependent on the distance from the galactic center. Instead, cold planets orbiting far from their stars seem to exist universally in the Milky Way. This includes the galactic bulge, which is a very different environment with the solar neighborhood and where the presence of planets has long been uncertain. Stars in the bulge region are older and located much closer to each other than stars in the solar neighborhood. Our finding that planets reside in both of these stellar environments could lead to an improved understanding of how planets from the form and the history of planet formation in the Milky Way galaxy. According to the researchers, the next step should be to combine these results with measurements of microlens parallax or lens brightness, two other important quantities associated with planetary microlensing. And that's it for me. Bill, back to you. This is KE5I6.
Okay, very good, Tom. This is Inside DB. Skynet, net control. And let's see, Tom talked about Brenda's item, the recent astronomical discoveries. I might also just really quickly comment that there's another item which I thought about talking about tonight. An accidental discovery hints at a hidden population of cosmic objects. It's got a really neat graphic associated with it. Brown dwarfs aren't quite stars and aren't quite planets. And a new study suggests there might be more of them lurking in our galaxy than scientists previously thought. They found a object which they're calling the accident. It's a brown dwarf, but they accidentally found it because it was different than other brown dwarfs they were looking for. Again, brown dwarfs are very hard to see. They're like extrasolar planets because they're so dim. Anyway, this was on a NASA JPL message sent out on August 31st. I think that's it right now. Do we have any other items for the net before we close Skynet? This is Inside BB, net control. Do we have any late check-ins? I see Justin, but I don't know if he wants to check in. Does anybody else want to check in to Skynet before we close the net? This is Inside BD, net control. I believe that's it. Hang on while I count the check-ins. Hold on. I believe we had 27 check-ins tonight. I want to thank everybody for checking into Skynet and putting up with the fact that the W5FC Echolink node was down. and I was overloading it without realizing the WA5CKF echolink node. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're also always looking for net controls for this net and all other Dallas Immaterial Club nets. If you'd like to try your hand, contact any net control or send an email to nets@w5sc.org. You can look at w5sc.org at the conclusion of this net and find all kinds of other things about astronomy in general and this net.
Are functioning perfectly.
Until Saturday night, I'm closing a net now. And Tom, what's going to happen for the Afterglow net? This is N5BD, closing Skynet. Good night.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. This is KE5ICX. We'll be back in about 5 minutes, and we'll be talking about the reconstruction of William Zero from 2014. Come on by. I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. We hope you enjoy it. Even if you haven't seen it, I think you'll find it quite interesting. We'll be back in 5. This is KE5ICX.
Afterglow started. This is WV5OZL, Brenda. Does anyone need to use the net before we begin the Afterglow movie net? Okay. This is pretty simple. We pick a movie and then we all watch it, and then we discuss it on Saturday night after Skynet. This week's movie is called The Reconstruction of William Zero, a science fiction movie about cloning, essentially. K5ICX, would you like to read us your synopsis?
Yeah, if you like, Brenda, I'll go ahead and give the plot over on Wikipedia if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead. I have internet at the moment. It's probably going to lose it just any moment.
All right, no problem. This will be for anybody who didn't see it, but wouldn't mind talking about cloning. So here we go. It says, this is The Reconstruction of William Zero, a 2014 American science fiction film, where, let's see, starring Byrne, and it just says last name, and no first name, and Amy Schmitz. Byrne plays geneticist who clones himself. Here's the plot. After accidentally causing the death of his son, geneticist William Blakely wakes in a house tended by a man who introduces himself as his twin brother. His brother explains that William was involved in a car crash. William can remember nothing of his life and must be taught basic concepts on how to walk and respond to knock-knock jokes. That's a very important part. Together they watch old footage of William and his twin as children. Though William does not recognize his estranged wife, Jules, he is entranced by her. William's brother is finally called to return to work at Next Corp, and he leaves William alone in the house for a day. At work, William's brother is revealed to be the real William Blakely, William 1. He stole material from the lab to create a clone, William 2. His assistant Baxter tells William 1 that their test subjects have been dying in mere weeks. Before William 1 can do anything further, his boss, Dr. Archer, takes him to see several security agents who accuse him of stealing the lab materials. Dr. Archer supports him, but the security agents remain suspicious. At the same time, William 2 explores the house and discovers enough evidence that he becomes confused about his origins and identity. Further confusing William 2 is the phone call apparently from a haggard-sounding version of William, who is later revealed to be the original William, William Zero, who apologizes for leaving him and promises to return. William 2 angrily confronts William 1 after interrogating 1. 2 ties him up and leaves him to find Jules, who he hopes can explain further. Although overwhelmed by his first experiences in the world, 2 quickly adapts and locates Jules. He awkwardly reestablishes contact with her, though she initially rejects him as she feels abandoned and left alone to deal with her grief. William 2 secretly follows her around the city and becomes more smitten with her. Meanwhile, 1 escapes his bonds and kills the Next Corp security agent who is investigating the house and its grounds. 1 recovers a pistol from the agent's body and uses it to kill Dr. Archer. William 1 quickly returns home and pretends to be bound. When his clone arrives, he convinces 2 to take over his life. 1 does not wish to return to it. 2 reluctantly agrees and goes to work at Next Corp, where he learns that the animal test subjects are second-generation clones. Baxter explains that cloning a clone causes extensive genetic problems, and William 2, who is experiencing the described symptoms, realizes he must be a second-generation clone too. Before he can return home to further question William 1, the security team detains him for further questioning. Baxter is dubious about the company's ethics, frees him, and traps the security team. After growing increasingly suspicious of his neighbor's activities, Lester confronts William 1. 1 invites Lester inside, and after pushing him down a flight of stairs, explains his origins. The original William Blakely, William Zero, was so overcome by guilt and grief that he abandoned his wife and created a clone, William One, to replace him. However, One felt abandoned by his creator once William Zero disappeared. As he struggled through life with no help, he became bitter and disillusioned, eventually attempting suicide. Unable to face his own broken life, William One created a clone to replace him, freeing him to seek vengeance on William Zero and the world. After killing Lester, William One lures Jules to the house, planning to kill her to spite William Zero. Although confused by his cold demeanor compared to Two, Jules does not suspect anything. Two arrives before One, can kill Jules, and he tells Jules that he loves her. After the two embrace, William 2 attempts to dispose of William 1's body, only to be confronted by William 0. Knowing he will soon die, William 2 convinces William 0 to return to his wife and promise never to leave her again. William 0 tearfully agrees, and they arrange for his death to be faked. Sometime later, William 0 is shown together with Jules and his now cloned son. Everybody keep up with that? Back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. One thing I want to clarify that is not a net synopsis, but is just briefly mentioned in the movie, there was a twin. William did have a twin that died when he was 4. That's why we have the old movie footage of the two little boys. And that's very confusing. But you know, he did, there was a twin at one time, but not an adult twin. All right, we're going to take check-ins. We'll discuss plot, characterization, and special effects, or whatever else you want to talk about. So let's take regular RF check-ins now. We want your name, and, well, your call sign, your name, and whether or not you saw this movie. Please come now.
Yes, I saw the movie.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey. My name is Jay, and I did not see the film.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom in Louisville. Of course I saw the movie.
Okay, we got KG5BZWJ, who did not see the movie, W5BB Bill, who did, and KE5ICX Tom, who did. Do we have anybody on Echolink?
This was inside BB. I only saw 20 minutes of the movie. So I'm going to listen, but probably not say anything. This is Inside BD. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Well, this might be a short one then. It looks like Jay didn't see the movie and Bill saw some of it. He's only going to listen. That basically leaves me and Tom to argue about this unless we have anybody else check in. Oh, let's carry on. Okay, KE5ICX. Tom, what did you think about the plot?
Well, Brenda, I didn't have any problems with it as some people did. I think this is just a kind of a retelling of Frankenstein's monster. I mean, who was the real monster in that story? It was, of course, not the monster. It was Frankenstein. He was less human. He was less capable. And I think in this case, what was happening is William Blakely, as the creator, was the less likable character, at least at the beginning. And the monster comes out and reacts angrily to his indifference and unhappiness, and with unhappiness. And then he goes ahead and then creates his own proxy. In essence, I think that's the term that they used to so that he could go by and do his evil deeds along the way. So I didn't mind that so much. I thought it was kind of interesting that somehow or another it didn't make any sense that Blakely was able to do all these things under the cover of darkness, except for his nosy neighbor ended up getting pushed down the stairs. So that was a little bit much, I thought. But I didn't mind what the characters are doing as far as the angst that went along with it. And the fact of the death of the son, and the fact that he wanted to reestablish his relationship with his former wife, or I guess they're still married, but and the fact that he had accidentally killed her son, she said, and his son, but he didn't call him his son. He called him her son. So, it was interesting. It took a long time to get through. The exposition was very, very long, but I didn't think it was all that bad. I thought it was kind of interesting that with the title itself, it tells you everything that's going to happen, the reconstruction of William Zero, by allowing the second clone to actually go in and reestablish a relationship with his wife, to realize that there was a way of bringing them back together, and it wasn't an impossible task, and that he had been too meek about the whole thing, and that was even mentioned by one of the clones. You were too meek, that you would shy away from the opportunities. And so you got a yin and a yang when it comes to the two clones that were created. A good Blakely, a bad Blakely of sorts, I think, which was interesting contrast, and that was explored also in, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and more recently Star Trek, The Enemy Within, those type of things. So you had this trivenerant thing going on between the three of them, and it ended up between the contrast between the two clones that actually the reconstruction of William Zero was possible, and he was able to pick up his life and start again with the woman that he loved, but also he hurt. And I thought that was kind of a touching and telling thing at the end. Maybe I'm a big softie when it comes to things like that. There was a bit of the gratuitous violence that was in it, even though it was relatively short. But and it served kind of a weird purpose that we suddenly push the neighbor down the stairs, and then he sits and he spills his guts and his feelings, which I guess had to be done to get the exposition out in a way that made sense. So I was okay with it. I thought that the effects themselves were fairly decent, computer-generated biological stuff, which worked out okay. The labs were reasonably well stocked in a way that made sense. You knew this was a low-budget picture. Let me reset. But the film never really felt low budget. I think that they did a pretty fair job with being able to go from scene to scene and to keep it interesting all along the way. And I had not read the synopses up front. Whenever I write my reviews or my previews of whatever the movies are, I deliberately do not watch the films unless I know what they are and I've already got it in place. So it came as a surprise as these clones started to appear, and there were two of them. But it kind of makes sense, I guess. And then we know what William Zero is, who is supposed to be. So I thought that worked okay. I can't talk about acting yet, but I think it worked overall. I think that the death of the investigator from the lab was a little bit overt, but I guess that's kind of the way it is. You need to have filler material, although I didn't think it was all that helpful in the storyline. I think that if I wanted to see it, if it was a perfect story, I think I would have expected William in his various iterations to be a little bit more contrasting between the three characters. I guess it's getting into characterization, but since it's all about the core values is what the story is about and very little about the science itself, it seemed to me that it was somewhat difficult to discern between the various characters, and maybe that's where the movie may have fallen flat for most people. I was listening to what they were saying, I was listening to the dialogue, and I thought that it was interesting. There are some comments, and I'll mention them when we go into the characterization parts that are kind of interesting, I think. I don't know. I guess that's the security agents and that following was kind of filler material, so I wasn't overly thrilled about that. But I didn't mind the movie at all. I think that it had something to say about people and their actions and reactions, and the fact that they literally build walls around each other. And I thought that was something that is something we all deal with on an everyday basis. So I thought humanistically it had more going for it than many people thought. There wasn't a lot of action in it. As I say, it was a lot of exposition. And you had to listen to the exposition to kind of stay with the story. Could have been told in less time? Yeah, probably. Probably taken about 20 minutes off the movie, and I think it would have been a tighter, more positive experience for people who watched it. So that's it for me on this one, KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Well, I'm one of those that said I didn't like it, which is oversimplified. In many ways, I did like it. It made me think. It's provocative, thought-provoking. It makes you examine ethics and morals. What I didn't like is someone who could just kill so casually, and the bloodiness. It was pretty gruesome, and it's just kind of like being hit over the head repeatedly. Didn't like that part. I have a real problem ethically with cloning people, and pragmatically, you got two people who have the same DNA. One commits a crime, who goes to prison? That could be a real problem. Or two people with the same identity, who goes to work? Who has the credit card? Who has the wife? What if they both decided they wanted the wife? They're both technically married to her. The whole thing gets really sticky. And, I'm not sure it's right anyway to clone a person. This is kind of like playing God. I think it's far stickier than they examined in the movie. But it is a fascinating concept of, what would happen. Now, I wasn't buying the basic premise. I'll clone myself and I'll disappear and that will solve my pain. That's not going to work. He's still going to hurt. And it would be far better to find a therapist and deal with his pain productively. A lot of people go through this. You live long enough, you're going to lose people. And we all have to live with it. So, he's not the only one. He just needs to figure out how to deal with his grief and do so in a more constructive way than killing people and creating a clone. I was a little disturbed by them creating a clone of the sun. I just thought that was a little creepy, and you wonder, does that kid have a birth certificate now? And will he find out someday? And if so, how is he going to feel about that? I think a person would feel kind of creepy. It's like, that really you died and we cloned him, and now you're, now you're here. A little creepy to me. It was really hard to follow in the beginning. It got easier as it began to explain things and begin to unfold, but in the beginning I just didn't know who was who, hardly. So I think they could have maybe explained that a little better, but... All right, any other check-ins?
Alpha India 5, Delta Yankee Bill, AI5DY.
AI5DY, did you watch this movie, Bill?
Yes, I did. Very confused as a blind guy watching it. All the Williams sounded alike, so I appreciate everybody's input. I like the movie. I like the concept. I thought it could have been squeezed into an hour, like a Twilight Zone episode or something. I did have a problem with them cloning the child at the end. I think cloning is a bad idea, if I learned anything. But it was an interesting concept. I liked the storyline. It did make me think. And so overall, I was glad I spent a Saturday afternoon watching it. AI5DY.
All right, yeah, it's the same actor playing Williams. And it was really hard for me to keep them apart, too. This is a very confusing story, and maybe if I went back and saw it again, it would make more sense. But in the beginning, it's like, I just don't know what's going on here. Okay, any questions?
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I did see the movie.
KB9SOK. Okay, tell us what you thought about the plot then.
Yeah, initially I felt the beginning was very slow. Even to the point, at one point, I actually had to take a break from it because I was just about ready to give up on the movie just because it was moving so slowly. They were definitely dragging it out. I know typically we complain about lack of character development, but this time it was almost too much because it was, that's entirely what the movie was really about, was the different variations of this guy through his clones. But it did pick up towards the end. It did get better. I do kind of understand why the one clone was potentially capable of killing so easily. The one, essentially he raised this person in a very short period of time without your typical parental teaching you right from wrong. So if you didn't really know that this was a bad thing, then, it would, it would definitely change your thoughts. I did have a lot of technical issues with this movie. It's just, I don't know that I buy the fact that they could have grown this clone in his basement with just a bathtub, some tubes, and some very basic equipment. It just, in the fact that he did this increased learning, as he called it, to make it super smart, super fast, but yet, the thing could completely talk and seemed to have most of his motor skills in no time, but yet couldn't seem to understand concepts. It was just kind of a weird, that part didn't really work for me, but I realized the story, they had to move it along somehow, and that was one of their ways of doing it. So yeah, the beginning of the movie was very dry for me, very predictable. You could kind of see what was coming. The second clone was a little bit of a surprise. At least there was a little bit of a twist there for it. And then, it felt like it got better at the end as we started moving things. But then the very, very end, I had a lot of issues with that as well. It just seemed strange to me that, that this guy could just simply leave one clone as the body, so they think he died. then he could rebuild a completely new life, assuming under a new identity. And just how did he explain this to his wife, what had all happened, and got her to buy into it and not want to turn him into the police. And then talk her into, as many have said, it's kind of disturbing to clone their son with that hair that she had from him when he was a baby in her locket. And once again, they did that in 15 months. I might have bought more into it. They said it had been 5 years down the road. It gave him time to disappear and maybe do this. But, yeah, that seems really strange, because I would almost think that, obviously there's nothing worse than losing a child, but I would think cloning your existing child that had died would just be a constant reminder of what happened. Would probably make it even worse. But, so yeah, I wasn't crazy about the ending. This was the worst movie that I've seen on here. But at the end, I just found the movie overall depressing, and just at the end, I just didn't really enjoy it, and probably won't ever watch it again. But there was parts of it, yes, that were very provoking, and yes, we shouldn't be cloning, and this is why we shouldn't. There's just so, and way beyond this, all the other issues it could cause. But that was just kind of my take on it. Back to net, this is KB9SOK.
Yeah, I think, one of the basic problems with cloning is, who is this person? Do you still have an identity? And we all enjoy a singular identity that's us and nobody else. And what if you lost that? I just think that would be a really strange feeling to not be an individual anymore. Okay, any more check-ins? I'm sorry, the repeater flipped, drowned you out. Would you come back again?
WD5 BPX Whiskey Delta 5 Baker Papa X-Ray. Bobby, Wilson, Texas.
Hey, WB5BPX, did you see the movie?
No, did not see the movie. Just coming in on the tail end of this. Thought I'd get in there for the count.
Alrighty, well, thanks for joining in. Alright, we're talking about the reconstruction of William Zero tonight. This is WB5OZL. Okay, I guess let's go back to talk about characterization. KG5BZW, Jay, did you have anything to add? I know he didn't see the movie, so we'll just skip on. KE5ICX, Tom, characterization.
Thank you, Brenda. Well, again, it's the three Williams, so characterization. Do the three Williams stand up, and are they able to be discerned as different characters? The answer is yes and no. To some extent, yes, we can see a dramatic difference between William 1 and William 2, and then eventually when William 0 is brought in, he obviously is the defective person in all of this, even more so than even William 1, who has become really, angry and unhappy. So, I don't know, I thought that was interesting. This William Zero's motivation makes sense. Yeah, it kind of does. He has to be shown and demonstrated by William 2 what the heck is the right thing to do and how to go about doing it. And having the bisect personality of William 1, who feels dejected and removed and angry about everything. And one of the things that William Zero was trying to do was to fix him, to make him better, and it just made him worse, really. I think that what comes out of this is that, you know, there's humanity in all of us, and some more than others, and, you know, this is something that has to be confronted. Now, the one thing, too, and you know, you got a relatively young William Blakely. He's got a child, or would have had a child, a young child, so he's middle-aged. And William, too, sees the benefits of the fact, well, first off, he's not going to live very long, so he wishes to he has to compress time. And he has to tell William Zero how important it is for him to fix the problem, that you don't have forever, and I don't have forever, so I'm going to tell you that the best thing to do is to fix the problem now. And he helps to enable that by, of course, killing off William I to stop the difficult to deal with William I. So I thought that kind of worked out quite well in the sense that of the sense of urgency that had to happen, and then finally it's fixed. Now, with the ending and the fact that cloning and all that, it's even mentioned in the movie that, you know, it's unethical and it's wrong, but somehow or another we keep doing it. So I don't know. I guess smoking is not very good for you, but people keep doing it. I guess drinking is something that's not very good for you, but you keep doing it. And you just ignore the obvious, which is that it's going to kill you. And I guess clones will do the same thing to you, too, as we found out. I thought the character, first off, characterization, the neighbor was the dumbest neighbor I think I've ever seen in my life. Even my neighbors are not that dumb. And I got some pretty dumb neighbors. I got some smart ones, too. They would never go over to the guy's house. But the dumb neighbors, even if they went over, they wouldn't go in. And why don't you go downstairs in the dark basement? I'll be right behind you. And I mean really right behind you. And pushes them down the stairs. So what happens then? Of course, you know, then he doesn't care because William Zero is going to get in trouble for it anyway. So doing it without impunity is no problem. I wondered about that for motivation until I figured out there were the two of them when the one was on, and he had no moral, ethical scale really outside of his own self-interest. Jules, I wasn't sure about her and her thought that she'd be lured into the house. It was obvious that there was something wrong. She knew it when she saw him out on the streets, and then finally when he lures her over. It's obvious something is not right, but she hangs with it. It's sort of like the horror movies where the kids, the teenagers, don't get out of the house, or they go down in the basement like the Dumbo neighbor did. You know, no, there should have been a better way to handle that. I think that maybe if they worked through that and the trust and distrust, maybe William should have been a little smarter and more capable, all three of them, in the way that they would handle the others. And I know that they kept the one clone kept practicing to make sure that it sounded as convincing as possible, and that was quite interesting. But it didn't go very long. It only lasted, about 30 seconds or something, and now we've got it all figured out. Somehow I think I would have probably, if I were to write the same story, I would figure out, much like Frankenstein's monster in Mary Shelley's story, I think I got that right, where he educates himself, and he finds that he is more civilized than his progenitor human, you know, more feelings and more capability and more understanding. I think that if maybe they snuck a little bit of that part of Frankenstein into the story, into this story, I think it would have made for a better and more coherent, more interesting characters. They did fall a little flat. I could see potential. Let me reset. potential build-up that would have been more interesting, but it was not to be. So I think maybe the reason why there's a split is people could see the potential and they appreciated where it did get, for those that had kind of a thumbs up to it. Those who are expecting a more substantial story really have a thumbs down, because it's like a glass half full, half empty. The glass is half liquid and half air, and this movie is half liquid and half air. And I think that's where part of the problem is. Back to you, KE5ICX.
KG5BZW.
KG5BZW. Go ahead, Jay. Jay, were you wanting to make some comments about the movie?
KG5BZW. I was trying to use Echo Link, but gotta allow me time to actually get on it. But I guess my radio is fine, so I'll just use that. So I will say this: I didn't get to participate on the plot aspect. I actually was kind of interested in the movie, but I don't know. This is just one of those days where things just don't seem to go right. I get into the film, watch about 20 or so minutes, realize, well, I need to have a nap. So it wasn't that it wasn't terribly boring or anything, but I just had to have a nap. And then later, when I wanted to try to finish it up, the app around here, the app I was using was just kind of acting up, and it's just a pain. And then, of course, I don't know, just a lot of things. It's an interesting concept. I do like KE5 Tom's KE5ICX synopsis about, the comparison with the Frankenstein. Does seem like it could, from what I've heard, it could have been made a little bit more streamlined and fun. I don't know, not fun, but there's a word I want to use, but I can't think of it. Yeah, it wasn't so much that this film struck at me as really bad from what I was watching, but unlike some other films I've seen where I gave up, but this time it was just I just did want to say it was more my bad luck than anything. So I don't really have much else to say. I figured I'd go ahead and throw in a few cents worth of comments or whatever. But anyway, I'll just leave it at that. KG5BZW.
N5BB.
N5BB. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. Thanks, Brenda. This is N5BB. I weren't sure if you were going to call on me, so I thought I'd just make sure you didn't close the net. I only saw 20 or 22 minutes like Jay, but I had a few questions about the movie that I thought maybe you could answer the plot. My biggest question is, why did William Zero clone himself in the first place? Did they really describe that in 5BB?
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't call you. I thought you said you were just going to listen. He wanted to disappear and thought that his clone would take his place. And I don't understand how this fits in with the grief recovery thing. What does that mean to disappear? I don't know. You gotta go somewhere. But that's what he said in the movie. So, okay, your other thoughts?
Well, did he move to the other side of the world? Did he he moved down the street. Where did he go? Was he hiding in the basement?
No, he was there in the house. He just hadn't finished his work yet with the clone. His plan was to disappear, which I find very unlikely. You got two people. You're going to share it. You're going to drive. You're going to have a bank account. I just wonder if he thought this out. I just don't know how that's going to work. Two people can share one identity. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, fingerprints are unique, even for identical twins and things. So, how did they handle the security problems at his employer? Because I'm assuming one day William 0 was going in, and then the next day William 1 was going in, and the way you described it, it sounds like some later day William 2 was going in. How did they just not have to mess with fingerprints? They were able to fool everybody because they look so similar?
Well, he gained access with a card, an ID card. I don't remember him giving fingerprints. Apparently the card let him in. However, that scene there with the dogs, and the guy that took care of the dogs, he didn't seem to know what was going on. And I don't know why that wasn't a big red flag for the dog keeper.
Okay, this is Inside BB. My next question, which is my fundamental one that confused me right at the start. How did the clone look like he was exactly the same age? Why did William 1 look like he was exactly the same age as William 0? And William 2 looked like he was exactly the same age as William 1. When you're drawing the clone, it's coming up from an embryo that's growing. So the clone is just like a baby being created, from sperm and egg. So how in the world did these other clones become identical? That also confused me. Inside BB.
Yeah, that's what we call a plot hole. I thought about that too. It's like, if you clone something, it's, you're cloning it from birth or test tube, and how could you grow something, a grown man, in just a few months? That it's just, they wouldn't have had the same story otherwise. They had to make them look the same age, or he couldn't use him as a replacement. If he was a child, the story would fall apart. WB50ZL. Anything else, Bill?
Yeah, and I assumed when I heard about this movie being related to cloning that the moment that I saw him run over his child, I assumed that what I was going to see was a clone of his child. So when I first saw what I later found out was evidently William 1 and William 2, I thought it was William 0 and his clone son that happened to look very similar to him. So I was just really confused about that. If he didn't clone anybody, why didn't he clone his son? And then you're saying he cloned his son later on. It sounds to me like it's nearly a time travel movie, but they decided to use cloning instead. Because just like a time travel movie, you got people that appear to be the same age, but they know different amounts of things because they've lived in different time scales. So, and because of your comments about all the violence later on in the movie, I now may not see it. I'll have to think about that, Brenda. Okay, thank you very much. And 5BB. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we're a product of not just our genetics, but all of our experiences. And this guy, 15 months in a bathtub, what's he going to know when he wakes up? Well, he didn't know much, and he just, I don't remember anything, but he knew how to talk and laugh and eat and knew a lot of stuff, and I don't know how you could make him really identical to his clone without all the same experiences that he had. I also question why they only cloned one child. Why not clone 2 or 3? Because what if that one dies? What do you do then? Do you just clone another one? Because life has risks, and it's not certain. So, okay, this is WB5OZL. Moving on, AI5DY, Bill, what do you think of the characters?
They were interesting. Like I said, it was hard to tell the Williams apart. Jules, the wife, I'm not entirely sure about her because it didn't seem plausible that she would take this guy back and then clone a son. So that was interesting to me as well. I liked the son at the end. You know, that was interesting. I did not expect that twist at the end. But yeah, it was interesting on the characters, and I was surprised that William 2, I had gotten confused somewhere along the way, and so for some reason I was thinking William 2 was the bad clone. So all was interesting. I don't know. I'm not sure that the characters were totally 100% likable, but yet that's probably human beings. It's messy. And so it did deal a lot with human emotion and people trying to rectify mistakes. So it's interesting. But I'm not sure I came away like tugging at the heart. There's not characters for me that tugged at my heart, so to speak. AI5DY.
Yeah, my complaint is there's no appealing characters that I would identify with or have sympathy with. I mean, after a while, you really begin to hate these people that just kill so casually and without any kind of feeling whatsoever. That's just monstrous. All right, KB9SOK, Sean, what do you think of the characters?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, yeah, the William, I had some trouble with him. Is multiple. It just, to me, it did seem a little flat. It just, I just didn't 100% buy into it. And the acting, I think, was just so-so. Yeah, it was just hard to buy into his character 100% there. You know, I get that Zero created the first one to be a better version of himself. As he mentioned at the end, you know, perfect eyesight, perfect hearing, and to be a better husband to his wife was his goal, and to console her because he couldn't. And of course that character just had a resentment to where the second clone actually did kind of basically do what he originally wanted the first clone to do and care about the wife. So I don't know, just overall it just seemed a little flat on that part. And I don't know if it was the acting, the writing, but it just didn't quite work for me. And then his best friend, supposedly, or his boss at work, it just seems odd that he couldn't figure out there was something up. You know, it was strange that, you know, these agents figured it out in 30 seconds when the clone showed up that it was not him, but yet, you know, he couldn't. Supposedly they were close. So that seems a little bit strange too, or maybe I missed it. Maybe the boss didn't know that about the first clone and understood it, but yeah, it just seemed a little odd to me on that. And yeah, the neighbor was a total idiot for sure. And yeah, I don't buy, as others have said, that the wife would so easily, after especially, it had been 2 years, just come back that easily, and fall for, you think she would have wanted to meet in a neutral place, especially since the third clone was basically stalking her, and she knew that. So, you think she'd be a little creeped out by that, which she sort of was, but yet she went over to his house anyway. And, yeah, I don't know. There's parts of it were actually interesting, the whole just concept of it. I think they overall had an interesting idea. I just think some of the acting fell a little short, and the writing did, and they just didn't fully think this plot completely through, because there is a lot of holes in it, as we just mentioned, I wondered that too. It's like, well, how did this clone, he did mention this accelerated learning and accelerated, growth, and, but if that was the case, wouldn't the clone keep accelerating and not live very long? So I don't know. It was kind of interesting, but I was hoping for better. Back to net. This is KB9SOK.
Yeah. I really question this scene in the end with everybody being so happy with the kid. They still have the memory of that child dying, and the guilt and the pain and the breakup and all of that trauma, and did that just all get erased? And the kid is just suddenly like 5 years old, that, just know how to feed itself or ride a bicycle. And, I don't understand having, why not just make him grown up? Like the Williams. I didn't quite get that, how this cloning thing even works. Okay, this is WB5OZL. We're talking about the reconstruction of William Zero. Do we have any more check-ins? All right, well, let's start at the top and talk. Normally we would talk about special effects. There wasn't much in the way of special effects here, but you can either talk about that or anything else you want. KG5BZWJ.
All right, no further comments. KG5BZW.
Very good. N5BB. Bill, what about you?
I think no further comments. Thank you, Brenda. N5BB.
KE5ICX. Tom.
Yeah, I did have, I think, one comment for sure. I wrote some notes. Bill was asked a question, and I don't know if, but I'm only going to supply a possible answer, whether it's satisfying or not, a whole different story. But he asked, why did he have a proxy? Why did he have this other version of William there? Well, that was, I think, answered by Dr. Archer. I think that was his friend that ended up, one of the clones ended up killing. He told his coworker late at night, you just don't leave a company like this. And I think part of that is because they probably get paid very well, but cloning is ethically wrong, and they know that. They're not stupid. And if it got out and a disgruntled employee left and told all, bad things would happen. And in fact, there's a whole security force that runs around Next Corp that keeps, I think, the employees in line. The other thing, too, is while it seems like a big company, there doesn't seem to be very many people working there, which seems odd. And until I started thinking about my office space that I work in, And my building I work in is the size of a city block, and there's only about a dozen of us in there. So that should tell you that something's wrong. And I don't think we're doing any cloning yet. So I just thought I'd mention that. So by having the guy go to work, he could leave, which is essentially what he did. I like to amplify what others had said, and it did not come to my attention. Bill, I think, mentioned it involving the clones. So how the heck do the clones all end up the same age? That's a really good point. The cloning part of it really drives you insane. It's similar to the time travel issues and the paradoxes. With cloning, the same thing occurs in that you've got an open vessel, you've got a blank vessel, a blank canvas, and you go ahead and show some home movies, and suddenly they have a better understanding of everything. They know all the ins and outs of things, or they learn really, really fast, but you've got to have some sort of basis for that, and you've got to be able to do it over some period of time. If it was only a few months or a year or two or something, then you get the clone. First off, there's going to be a mismatch in their ages anyway, even if you're able to age them to a certain point, which doesn't happen. So that doesn't work. As far as a clone and having, the same fingerprints and that, probably they would have the same fingerprints, although that was never really introduced into the story explicitly at NextCorp. But it would be an interesting thing to consider with identifications and things like that. In fact, let me reset. Maybe the company would have become wise to them through more of a genetic standpoint. I mean, that is their business. Yet somehow or another, the clone got in there and just started working fine, and nobody bothered to question him, even though he was acting weird. So I don't know. So the plot holes, especially with cloning, just like with time travel and space travel, they all have their caveats that never, ever, ever get fully explained. And when they do, they become a movie like Primer, where nobody even can understand it, not even the people who made it. So maybe the thing is that you've got to do a little bit of a technical shorthand and not dwell too much into it, because then things go a little wacky. As they say on Science Fiction Theater 3000, just remember, if you wonder how they eat and drink and other things like that, just remember it's just a TV show, and you got to learn to relax. Back to net control, KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Well, I just quickly looked up on the internet about animal cloning. Remember Dolly, the sheep? The first cloned animal that we ever did. That was really a long time ago, I think several decades. Since then, more than 20 animal species have been cloned, including goats. But apparently they're not doing much of this because it's just not very efficient if you want to do it for food, animals. And I don't know if anybody has dabbled in human cloning. I just think it would be highly unethical and be very controversial. But, and these people in this company, I get the feeling this was really secretive and, out of the view of the authorities. Okay, AI5DY. Bill, what do you think?
I think you just don't leave a net like Afterglow. You just don't. That was when he talked about you just don't leave the company. That was probably my favorite line in the whole movie. I'll just close with this. It was probably one of the more interesting storylines, thought-provoking. Didn't have the special effects, but it was more the storyline and more suspenseful, I think. And so it did keep my interest in that regard, even though I didn't find the characters 100% believable as far as the wife, Jules, just going along with everything after that. And I think they were apart for 4 years. Maybe it was 2, but I thought it was 4. But anyway, it was one of the more interesting movies that I've seen. So, AI5DY.
Okay, thank you. KB9SOK, Sean. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, there wasn't obviously a lot of special effects in this movie. As I believe somebody mentioned earlier, yeah, the lab, their place looked, pretty realistic. I think the lab in his basement didn't. But once again, it's a low-budget movie, so, yeah, there wasn't much as far as music goes. I don't have a lot to say about the directing. Once again, it's an interesting thought, and more than anything, it makes you think about cloning. And yeah, I had thought about that sheep that you mentioned earlier that had been cloned. So we know they've done that, but if human cloning has been done, I'm sure it'd be kept a secret. Because obviously, it's definitely not ethical. I know at one time, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, they wrote an article where scientists were looking at potentially doing clones, but essentially brainless clones. So essentially, you would have a clone for spare parts. It of course is a thing for the rich, and obviously that never went anywhere because, yeah, it's just not ethical. And I'm not even so sure if it hasn't been banned by most countries. I'm not for certain. I was thinking I'd seen something on that, but as far as banning cloning humans. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing about this movie is just thinking about that. And, obviously we have the technology. We've done animals. I mean, obviously humans are going to be a little more complicated, but my guess is it could probably be done. But should we? So like time travel, should we? No, we probably shouldn't. And the same with clones, for any reasons. Because once again, is it alive? Is it not alive? Even if you did essentially create a clone as parts, or it just the whole thing's just not right. Anyway, back to net control. It's KB9SOK.
Yeah, I know creepy science fiction stories where they clone your body so that you can have spare parts for organ donation whenever you get sick. That's a whole other ethical discussion. But if you think cloning is a good idea, just look at Jurassic Park. It's just never going to end well. And just too many problems. Okay, anybody else? Any other check-ins?
N5BB is still here. I have one final comment.
N5BB, go ahead.
Okay, or serious comment. Sorry, Brenda. So, a clone is the same thing as an identical twin. It's essentially created in a similar fashion, you might say, to an identical twin, where two essentially identical embryos are created for the same genetic material. But identical twins, a number of things about them are not identical. One of them is the fact that their fingerprints are not identical, because that relies on a lot of happen-chance things that occur as the embryo is growing. And so the fingerprints on identical twins are similar, but they're not identical. The other thing is that if William 1 and 2 were laying in some bathtub thing for some extended period of time, their muscles never would have developed. In fact, their nerves wouldn't have developed correctly. In order for your body to develop, it's got to go through a lot of things. In order for you to walk and learn to run and talk and do everything, you have to go and experience life. You have to run around. You have to move your limbs. You have to build your muscles. The nerves have to grow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you really can't create a human that's 30 years old in a tank. It just doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. They would not look anything like a normal human, let's put it that way. Their skin wouldn't look like the same. Their bones wouldn't develop. I mean, nothing would develop. So this is all a fantasy. It's just another way to do a time travel movie without having to do time travel. N5BB. Thanks.
Well, yeah, and science fiction is so much what if. And we may know that it's not plausible or practical, but we want to see a story where we explore these ideas, and that's the fun part. Okay, any more check-ins? Any more comments? About next week. Tom, what you got for us?
Thank you, Brenda. I did have one final comment, and that is, it was your Jurassic Park comment. How many times have they reopened that park after people have died and been eaten by dinosaurs and that? They even expanded to Jurassic World. Who the heck is their insurance company? That's what I want to know. Who insures and underwrites all of these disasters, one after another after another? And then they let the same stupid people run the place. I mean, I bet you the guy that got pushed down the stairs in our movie works for Jurassic Park. I'll bet you. All right, next week's movie is an A-list film. Everybody write this down. You want to see it. It's On the Beach from 1959. It's an American post-apocalyptic science fiction drama film from United Artists, produced and directed by the famous Stanley Kramer, that stars Gregory Peck, Ava Gardner, Fred Astaire, I think he has a song and dance number in it, and Anthony Perkins, who has a torture and death section in it. This black and white film is based on Neville Shute's 1957 novel of the same name, depicting the aftermath of the nuclear war. Unlike in the novel, no one is assigned blame for starting the war. The film hints that global annihilation may have arisen from an accident or misjudgment. It's available online. I will send all that information out. If you would like to be a part of it and you're listening, just send an email to me, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX at yahoo.com, and you can be put on the list. If you prefer Facebook, go to Afterglow Movie. That's 2 words, Afterglow and Movie. Sign up there, and I will send you links or post the links, as well as a list of movies that potentially be watching, including 2 weeks into the future. Back to you, Brenda, KE5ICX.
Hey, Tom, before you leave, can you say again the name of the movie and the date it was released, the year it was released, N5BB?
It is called On the Beach, released by United Artists, and it came out in 1959. KE5ICX.
Thank you. By the way, I'm getting ready to disconnect the WA5CKF node from this repeater in 5BB. Good night.
Okay, well, this was pretty good net. Thanks for everybody that participated. So we're going to shut it down now. It's 11:45. This is WB5OZL Clear.
Thank you, Brenda, for doing the net. Catch you later. Do you have internet still, or is it dead?
it's up and stable for now. We'll see.
All right, well, I'm going to transition over to the chair. If you're there, I'll chat with you a little bit, and then I'll head to bed. So if you're there, you're there. Otherwise, I'll watch a few minutes of Lost in Space, the last of this show that's on MeTV, and then after, hit the hay.
KG5OCB.
Disconnected.